Ram Dass once had a quote that said, if you think that you're enlightened, go spend an entire week with your family. And I feel like that's such a strong quote that a lot of people can relate to, because I think the way that family is subconsciously structured into our brains, and all of the things that we don't realize is like subconsciously there with our family members, is probably the oldest form of trauma that we have, probably the strongest form of nostalgia, of wanting, of acceptance. And I think a lot of people feel that they have lost a part of their lives or a great chunk of their lives due to like childhood trauma. And it's something that I definitely can relate to. I think that family being the one who taught you how to take care of others and what it means to love and take care, sometimes they teach you to love and take care of people more than taking care of yourself, if it was kind of a toxic relationship with your family. And family sort of feeds and constructs your limiting beliefs as well, because they kind of teach you what is accepted, what you can't do, what you cannot do. And unfortunately, those experiences or those beliefs that they give you is based off their own experience and not what truly can be there for you and valid. I know personally, I've talked to a lot of people about like the family bonding situations, and it feels as though because family is blood, that they feel like they can kind of speak to you more truthfully. And when I say truthfully, I mean they can speak with you with a little bit more disrespect. They can be more blunt, they can be honest, they could be trying to take care of you or bettering you, but in that way they're actually being like very disrespectful, because since they're blood, they're allowed to do that to you, whereas like strangers can't tell you. That's why sometimes family members would be like, well, I'm just telling you to let you know because I don't want somebody else to do it, like acting as though like their words are helping you from hearing it from somebody else. But it's also not helpful to hear it from family as well, from the one unit that's supposed to take care of you and love you and guide you in a nurturing way, and then it doesn't happen, right? And I feel like a lot of people have this nostalgia for their family, of not only like what they aren't, but what they could have been for them, what they should have been. And they spend sometimes their entire life like hoping that they'll return to like those momentary parts when they're nice, or they're loving, or they're cherishing, or they do good things for you. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because I want you to understand why it's so difficult with family dynamics to be the better person, to have like really structured environments where you're all seeking each other's like greatness, because not everybody was taught that way, and your families maybe don't have the capacity to know or to learn these things. It's also difficult because your family is a part of your initial internal wiring system. Like they are the ones that become an old pattern and that are subconscious in you. So when you're a child, everything that you learned is being repeated and dug almost into your subconscious of who you are, how to act, what to do, what to say, etc. And those things from a child are hardwired into your brain. When you get older, it becomes a lot harder for you to disengage with those or to fight them, because they're so familiar in your system and your bones of how you act, what you do, what to think, how to feel, that it's integrated into the subconscious of your brain. And when you interact with your family members, you're not just interacting with them in the current moment, you're interacting with this old presence, these old traumas, these old habitual things that subconsciously irritate you, and it makes it harder for you to treat them in the present moment like a new person, like you would somebody else, because you have all those emotional like years of rewiring in your system, and it prevents you from overcoming things a lot easier than with strangers or with coworkers or with friends that haven't been around as long to hurt you, right? And it almost gives this like learned helplessness behavior, because as a kid, if you were never able to express or respond to anything that they said, you will eventually have learned helplessness and learn that it doesn't matter if I argue with you or not, you're still going to treat me this way. So we don't even try to create boundaries or have anything else, because we know sometimes that those people aren't capable, or they're going to carry resentment for you if you continue to do that. And it really plays a part in how you interact and how you are with other people. And especially if your parents were manipulative and they taught you like a transactional way of love. So like if your family says, if you love me, you will do this for me. If you love me, you're going to do this instead of that. And that is really hard for you to overcome as well, because you're not thinking that you're worthy of setting those boundaries, because then you know if you don't do something, you can't have them. And the thing I want to remind you is that it's beautiful that you're here doing the work, trying to understand who you are, what you come from, how to change things. But one like little asterisk that I want to mention is like, what I want you to understand is that your parents may not have the same capacity to learn, to grow, and to explain things in the way that you do. And your trajectory of life and your purpose of life can be mind-bogglingly different than your parents or your caregivers or your families or even your friends that have raised you, or whatever the situation is. What I want you to understand is that your parents' purpose of life could be completely different. Your caregiver's life can be so different that if you're on this path and they aren't, that's totally okay. They were not born to do the things that you were born to do, and they're not here to create the worth and the earth that you were here to recreate and inspire and do. And you can't project your ability and your willingness and your capabilities onto them, because they may not have it. Honestly, like, I don't think my parents were here for any bigger reason other than to just have kids that will create better systems and art and divinity in the world. And as much as that sucks to say, it's just true. And I can realize that, and I can meet them where they are and understand that their capacity is not going to be as strong as mine, because we have different visions. And regardless of what their life purpose is, it doesn't make or have really anything to do with what my life purpose can be and should be. So just a little asterisk that I love that you're doing the work for yourselves, but sometimes the people around you weren't made to do that work. You're a completely different, like, you are the generational barrier, you are the breaker, you are the odd sheep, because you're going to make transformations that nobody else in your lineage could. Now, this is a little off topic, but I just want to mention this in case you're wondering, like, was my family toxic? Was there a little bit of like absenteeism? Am I just making this up, or am I crazy? I know a long time for me, when I was in therapy, I was like, are all these stories real, or did I just like make them up? Because sometimes you've been like so blindsided and not believing in yourself that your parents sort of make you wonder if like you're the crazy person, or like if you're in a toxic relationship, they make you feel like you're the one that's like making these things up. But I read this book about emotionally absent or emotionally abusive parents, and these are some trademarks for emotionally immature parents, I guess is the correct wording here. So they become subjective rather than objective. How they feel is more important than facts or logics. They have little respect for differences, meaning that they're annoyed by the view of other people. They are egocentric, so childish, not childlike state. They have a fear of being exposed as bad or looking like the bad guy, because deep down they know that they are. They will never admit to being insecure, and they will always be defensive. They'll be self-occupied and self-engulfed, meaning that they can't focus on anything that you have to say. It's only what they do. They're constantly assessing if somebody is offending them or if their needs are being met. The self-esteem rises and falls depending on how other people view them. They are self-referential, meaning that all roads lead back to them. It doesn't matter where you go in the conversation, somehow it always leads back to that person and not what's actually going on, or facts or logic. They tell you their intention about what they did instead of just apologizing for the things that they did. They want to be the center of attention, often the loudest in the room that calls for attention, or is the most emotionally immature person, because they like the attention, whether it's good or bad, attention is still attention. They promote role reversal, so you being the adult and them being the child to get emotional stability from you, or expecting attentiveness when they should really be giving it to you. They have low empathy and are emotionally insensitive, meaning that they're blind to understanding how they make other people feel. Also, they use the ability to read people for reference, not for validation. So they operate to use it against you to see when you're feeling something for emotional validity. So they're trying to size you up instead of being listened to, basically. So if any of you relate to that, or have parents, friends, relationships that are like that, just know that you're not alone, you're not crazy, and those are what people that are immature do to other people, because I don't want to say they suck as a human being, but sometimes that's how they've learned, or that's how they cope with taking no responsibility. So what I want to do is teach you kind of how to resolve that. I know that if it's not a family member that's so heavily traumatized in you, I want you to think about how you can treat somebody like it's a brand new day, like you're not bringing their old actions and habits into that conversation if it doesn't emotionally trigger you to your core. Resetting the emotion before you reach out with your old tendencies to yell or to ignore or to do whatever. Or I like to sometimes, if I'm really like having an issue trying to relate to somebody, is trying to see them as their younger self instead of who they currently are. And this is why sometimes a lot of us in therapy like to overthink things, because we think if we could find out why somebody is like it, we can relate better or we can understand them better. And part of that is a good process, because you are taking yourself like out of the situation and you're pulling yourself away from it in order to be able to configure and what's going on. And reframing it for that thing is important, but you also don't want to just not excuse your emotions or not feel your emotions because you understand why somebody is the way that they are, okay? So I'm not going to say excuse their behavior. I'm just going to say reframe it in order to have a momentary conversation with them. And the more that you can regulate your nervous system while you're doing this, instead of reacting, the better it is for you. The second way that I would say to relate to somebody or to deal with this situation would be to create boundaries. Now, again, this does come with a caveat, because I want you to understand that if you are dealing with an emotionally manipulative person, if you are dealing with boundaries from a family member that is toxic, I want you to understand that no matter how much you explain to them something, I am such a victim of this. I think as long as somebody understands, maybe they'll change. No, this is the real problem, is that explanations are for people who seek understanding. Manipulators use that understanding and that explanation as material for negotiation. So they're never going to be able to take what you say critically and apply to that, because that's not what they're wanting. They're going to use it, one, because you're giving them attention. So you giving them attention, whether it's good or bad, is still attention. You're still negotiating with them. You're still giving them what they want, which is validation and attention. Two, they're going to use that to sidetrack or to manipulate your words into continuing to react with them instead of taking accountability. And sometimes if you're arguing with somebody based on explanations, this is what a toxic person does. Now, if it's a healthy person or somebody that you just know you're having a little bit of misunderstanding with, you can use boundaries if it's in a non-toxic relationship. And also, I just want to say, if you're one of those people that feel like you have to have an explanation for somebody else, if you create a boundary and you feel like you need to explain to them why, you really don't. You're saying that because you have been told that everything you do needs an explanation, but sometimes no is an answer, and it's a valid answer. And sometimes boundaries without explanation are perfectly fine. You think that because you've been taught to give like answers that they can rationalize and tell you no with. You don't have to give somebody an explanation to why you're responding to them or not responding to them, especially if they're a manipulative person. And when you explain it, just understand that that person now has a doorway to turn it around for their benefit. So if you don't want to explain things and you just want to hard boundary people, that is okay. If you're dealing with somebody that can't take a reaction without turning it into an emotional reaction and a defensiveness that gets them, just set the boundary and know that you're doing what you have to do for yourself. And that, baby, is self-love. Now, if we can go back to the original feeling of trying to deal with the emotions whenever these boundaries or whenever these people come up in our family unit that we feel is stressful, I want you to think about the 5 aggregates of mana. Now, I wrote this down because I want you to think in the way this podcast said it, The Way Out is In. They have a beautiful explanation of this if you want to get into more like Buddhist philosophy. But they say creating seeds, you have created seeds and people have created seeds in you from your ancestors that will say that you're not enough, that you don't belong, that you'll never make it, that you can't get somewhere. But those are all insecurities based from other people that have been passed down generationally, either physically in the form of like your genetics, of your mental health, or they've been passed down verbally to you. And those keep you rooted in fear and they keep you trying to be safe, but it doesn't allow you to grow as a person. So I want you to ask yourself, when you realize like why the reason that you're struggling is, I want you to ask yourself, like, when these people say those things, how old are those seeds that are in you, that are in them, that are arguing? What age are they? Are they old, like huge beliefs that have been around? Are they 20-year-old beliefs? Because the older the belief is, the more you can communicate it to that other person and say, hey, I know where this is coming from. I see the root of it. It's not like this anymore. And this is what I'm going to do about it. Whether you like it or not, this is how I'm going to respond. And if the suffering is new, if it's something where it's like somebody throwing a fit, or it's just like this brand new emotion that has came up in the past like 10-15 minutes and it's just an argumentative emotional thing, then it's a new suffering, it's a new seed. So what do you do with a newborn? Do you try to logically talk to it? No, because it can't understand you. You cuddle it, you try to understand it, you try to soothe it, you try to calm it before it gets worse. You know, you take care of all of its needs. Does it need sleep? Does it need rest? Does it need to come at a later time and us discuss it later? We should be reacting to our family and efforts to how old the seeds are that we're arguing about, if that makes sense. And the main point I want you to understand about dealing with families or toxic relationships or trauma is that eventually, no matter what happens, whether it's in therapy, whether it's just life experience, whether it's getting rid of them, getting out of the environment, you need to choose yourself over anybody else in your life. And I know this is a harsh way of saying it. It's because I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm just very bold and I don't know how to say this like in a nice way, but like when you think about it, you inevitably were born alone. And when you pass in this world, regardless of whether you've had partners, you've had friends, you've had family, whatever, you're going to cross that path alone. Now, technically, it'll probably be with an angel or a spirit guide, but you know what I'm saying? Your life is your own, and your accountability to whatever happens to you because of this life or in the next life, if you believe in that, comes from you. The only person that can take accountability for the things that you say and do are you. So it's okay for you to create things that other people don't like if it means that you're choosing yourself. But in order to get past these, you have to find self-worth and you have to find that validation within yourself and understand that all of the things that you were giving other people, like people pleasing and just letting them, run over you and whatever, you should have been doing that for yourself. And it's not something that you can blame yourself for. This isn't your fault, but it's something that you can actively take control once you realize that, and you can make it better for you and realize all of those years that you spent pouring into other people, you can actually do that for yourself and your life will completely change. You also have to break the people-pleasing attitude that, like, if I do something, if I bend over far enough for somebody else, if I do this for somebody else, then eventually they'll be who you want to be. Let people be who they are, and you be who you are without having to people-please for other people, because the right people will come into your life when you're your truest self. And if you haven't been your truest self and you've been masking, then that's why the people around you aren't the right people for you, and why you feel that, because you haven't truly given yourself yet. And self-love is not selfish. Boundaries are not selfish. Those are just things that you have been taught because they wanted to keep you close to them. Okay? So don't feel bad for taking ownership and control of your life, because if they were supposed to be doing what they were supposed to be doing, wouldn't you not have any problems? Like, they clearly aren't helping you. They're only doing what's better for them. So don't be afraid to do that. Boundaries are not selfish. They're necessary parts of life. And the more that you live how you want, the less you will lose yourself along the way. The more confident you will be when you start making decisions in your own power. The more that you won't resent yourself for staying in a situation or around people that don't truly love you. And the more you'll find self-worth, and you don't have to get it from external validation, because the thing about external validation is it never lasts, right? Like, external validation is a lot like buying things. It's a lot like going out to the store, buying something. It gives you a temporary dopamine hit, but it doesn't actually fix the root of the problem. So you have to get those things within yourself and fill your own cup. That's why external validation only lasts for a little bit of time. And the goal is just to not become a victim to your parents' collateral damage that they've given you. You want to be a participant in your own life, that you can share and love and respect and have a chosen community where you are a part of it and where people seek, respect, and validate you. That is the goal. And I love you. Leave questions, comments, concerns in the comments. Let's build this community together and talk about it.